Happy Friday evening to everyone. This is the Week 2 Fantasy Football Start Sit Show presented by Flurry Sports. I'm Henry John. I'm joined by the coach, Kevin Schroeder. How are you doing tonight, sir? Had a crazy Thursday night football game there last night, and we got a fun slate on tap here this weekend, too. So I say let's jump right into things here and breeze through what we got coming up.
That sounds great. Let's do it.
All righty. So I guess while I am pulling up your articles here, we can start there. And then we are kind of running a tight time ship here tonight. So if anyone does have any start sit questions for week 2, drop those right in the chat. We will answer as many as we can before the coach has to get out of here. You've got about 30 or so minutes, I would say. So feel free to drop those questions in the chat. Coach, while I am pulling up your articles here, maybe just some of your reactions to what we saw last night on Thursday Night Football, a wild game between the Giants and Washington, the football team, and some interesting fantasy takeaways. Curious to hear your thoughts on, in particular, the Washington backfield going forward. I know there were a handful of Antonio Gibson owners who weren't too happy, and also anything else you saw that you'll be monitoring with these two teams as we move forward with the season.
Yeah, well, Tyler Heinicke looks like the real deal. I think when Fitzpatrick is back, you might have a legit quarterback controversy here. Heinicke filled in nicely in the playoffs last year too, and count me amongst those Antonio Gibson owners who were none too happy with how everything shook down last night. J.D. McKissick obviously has PPR value, but if he's getting goal line touches too, it's
since when has J.D. McKissick ever gotten goal line touches? I mean, come on, what are we doing here?
Yeah, it was frustrating to watch that. Takeaways there, I guess. Antonio Gibson, I'm still holding going forward. I was a little disappointed that McKissick, it looked like week 1, it was going to be Antonio Gibson with kind of owning the backfield there. And it looks like it's more 70-30. And McKissick is definitely the third down, the 2-minute drive back. Another takeaway I had from the game, Sterling Shepard looks like he is the guy in New York, and for whatever the Kenny Golladay, I don't know at what point that's going to start paying dividends, but it looks like Sterling Shepard is the de facto number 1 for the time being out there, and he's doing very well for PPR. If you have him on your roster and you're playing him, you're not complaining. So.
Yeah, real quick. You don't have to go into any explanation here with this answer. Is Daniel Jones a legitimate dual threat quarterback?
As long as he can keep the turnovers minimal, he has,
he's got wheels, man.
He does. He does. He just looking at last week, his fantasy points. I mean, what did he put up last week? It was, QB 14, week 1. Last night he played well too. I mean, I don't know if I'm confident rolling him out there in a single quarterback league just yet, but I definitely in a 2-quarterback super flex, I'd feel confident rolling him out there.
Yeah, I think he's definitely better than some of those, low-end QB2 guys that you might have to throw out there in a super flex or a 2-quarterback league. To your point too on Kenny Golladay, visibly frustrated, shouting. I don't know if it was at Daniel Jones or Jason Garrett. I mean, Jason Garrett deserved to be shouted at the way he handled the end of that game. I mean, we got to be a little more aggressive there. But Golladay upset on the sideline. So will it pan out? You're saying until Sterling Shepard is the guy, maybe there isn't, and until there, something to monitor with the Giants. Daniel Jones, I thought he was impressive. I thought the Giants' offensive line actually came to play in the second half. Maybe both of these teams have a little more fantasy value than we thought. And talked a lot about the Redskins backfield. Good stuff there. I agree, I think, with your analysis. You can't get rid of Gibson now. Speaking of running backs, we might as well jump into some running back start-sit discussion here moving forward with week 2. after a bit of a deflating performance, I guess, for Gibson owners last night. Looking at your column, Coach, you have got as starters that you are looking to play this week the Dolphins, Myles Gaskin, their lead back there. We had an interesting discussion on this show about him a little bit last week, I think, and some of the other guys that they have there. Gaskin, it looked like he's pretty well entrenched, I'd say, in the lead role in week one for the most part. And then you got Tyson Williams, who with the Ravens, we were dead on with him last week. Baltimore, of course, getting the loss, but a good showing out of him in his first NFL game. You can pick one, or you can give us some tips on both here. Why are you high on Gaskin and Tyson Williams for week two?
Yeah, for both these guys, Gaskin does look like he's the number one there in Miami. And I highlighted just that he's averaged 4 receptions per game beginning last season. And that right there, he gets 18% target share for a running back. That's a nice floor. When you get those PPR points, it's a nice base. If you take 4 receptions and get 20 yards on them right there, that's a touchdown you're starting with in PPR. So it's I like that floor. Tougher matchup this week, but I do think he has a safe floor. And then Tyson Williams, it's a little worried with some of the conversation that Jim Harbaugh's had about some of the guys that he's going to be about getting everyone reps. And but this is the friendliest running backfield in the NFL. Between I wrote up last week that over the last 2 years, the Ravens have run the ball 200 more times than the next closest team, and they run the ball at a 57% rate. So it's almost more than teams did before the forward pass was part of the game. So I think it was a little disheartening to see Murray get so much work in the second half and end up with actually more carries in the game, when it did look like Tyson Williams was the most effective back. Understand there's some pass blocking issues there, so definitely that will play into his playing time until he can carry that end of the bargain. But I like both these guys. I think if you're in looking for RB2 or flex, these guys are going to fit the bill this week.
Yeah, to your point, I was surprised as well, just seeing Murray garner the majority of the workload. PPR scoring last week, Williams the RB9. And, if you want to take the touchdown Murray had there and put it on Williams, that only goes up. So I think the Ravens are going to be leaning on the rookie here going forward for sure. He looked excellent. I like the Gaskin call as well. The Bills' run defense came to play last week. We'll see, was that an anomaly? Obviously, Buffalo with some questions in terms of their offensive front after they were manhandled by Pittsburgh a week ago. So could be a slugfest down there in South Beach. That's kind of how I see that game playing out. Maybe it's a defensive, low scoring. I don't know if it's just me, but that's how I see this one going. Division rivals getting together there. So I think Gaskin does have a solid workload, and if the Bills are getting pressure, Tagovailoa we're going to be dumping it down to him a little bit in the passing game as well. In terms of sits, you have the Falcons' Mike Davis, and you have James Robinson with the Jaguars. Davis going against the Buccaneers. If anyone remembers football last year, Tampa's run defense, not exactly one you want to be messing around with. Look at the Cowboys' backs last week and what they did. Ezekiel Elliott, he didn't even get much run because there's just no point against this defense. So I have to agree with that one there. I don't know how much more we even need to say, especially given how the Falcons looked offensively. James Robinson, though, interesting one there, just given how consistent I think he was last year, regardless of who Jacksonville was playing. It was ugly last week, game one with Trevor Lawrence, and you're projecting more difficulties for him against the Broncos this week.
Yeah, as far as Mike Davis is concerned, it's tough to bench a guy who's probably got a floor of at least 15 touches. It's and probably it's realistically 18 touches. Um, but having seen the Bucks all last year shutting down run games and watching Ezekiel Elliott barely get any work, the way to attack him is through the air. And I just don't see it for Mike Davis. The only way he's going to come up with RB2 type numbers this week is with a touchdown. And the way the Falcons looked last week, I don't know if you're going to want to be banking on that necessarily. I am worried about James Robinson. He was a guy that I was low on after the Etienne pickup, and then I was high on him after Etienne went down with the injured foot, and now I'm back to I'm a little worried about how this goes with Urban Meyer here. I think Carlos Hyde is getting got more reps last week than James Robinson. I'm a little worried about the whole Urban Meyer experiment. So I'm staying away. In one of my leagues, I've got Tyson Williams and James Robinson. For me, it's Tyson Williams all the way. And if you have a tough decision to make, I just think James Robinson, I'm not even sure if I would want him at flex this week, just because I'm that concerned about. I really like the Broncos defense a lot, and I think it's going to be a tough matchup too.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I'm totally with you on the Broncos defense. I'm also totally with you. Pretty sure we talked about this at some point last week on this show. I want nothing to do with Urban Meyer. It wouldn't surprise me if week 9 rolls around and he suddenly has health issues and he's bailing on this team. I know he said this week he's not going to do that for the USC job, but he might just do it anyway and not go anywhere. That's Urban Meyer, and I don't like him in the NFL. Last week was Exhibit A for the Urban Meyer haters. So I guess we'll see how that rolls out. And a good point by you too on Carlos Hyde. We saw Hyde produce last year in Seattle when their backfield was a mess. So Hyde went to Ohio State. Urban Meyer used to coach at Ohio State. Maybe there's a little bias there with him too. I don't even know where James Robinson went to school. I can't remember right now. So yeah, we'll see how that all plays out. But 2 tough defenses there. And then Mike Davis last week, the Falcons offense was so bad. He was only the RB32, despite, like you said, the floor here is, at least a dozen to 15 touches a week. I don't know if I'm sold on the Falcons run game, even just looking at last year. Todd Gurley was a touchdown dependent fantasy back. When the touchdown stopped rolling in, Gurley lost his value there in Atlanta. And now if Matt Ryan's goose is cooked, which it sure didn't look pretty last week, that hurts Davis as well. Speaking of this Atlanta-Tampa Bay game, as we shift over to some wide receiver talk here, and again, if you do have any further running back questions or any fantasy football start-sit questions, feel free to drop them in the chat while we are here, and we will answer them as many as we can, whatever we get. Looking at this Atlanta-Tampa Bay game, you have starting all Buccaneers wide receivers against Atlanta this week. Talk to me a little more about this and why you are so high on Tampa Bay to put up some more points this week.
Yeah, I think this matchup here against Atlanta, it's going to be a Tom Brady fireworks show. I think Chris Godwin looks like he's kind of locked into the number 1 role in Tampa. He had 14 targets last week. Antonio Brown had 7 targets last week and turned those into the most productive game of any of the wide receivers, 121 yards and a touchdown. Love his upside there. Mike Evans, to me, is the guy that kind of is the third wheel. And if Gronk is really rolling at the the pre-injury Gronk level that we've been used to for most of his career, that might even fall further. Now, I do think that Tom Brady gets Mike Evans involved with the touchdown this week. I think he kind of was a goal line favorite of Brady's last year. So I do like Mike Evans to score this week. I would fire up all 3 wide receivers. 2 of them are going to hit, and one's going to do okay. My money would be on Godwin and Antonio Brown would be the first 2 I'd choose. But if you're going contrarian in DFS, I think Mike Evans makes a nice little play there too.
Yeah, PPR scoring last week, you hit the nail on the head. Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, wide receiver 11, wide receiver 12, respectively, both had north of 23 fantasy points. Dallas defense isn't good, but like you said, the Falcons' defense not that great either, particularly the secondary. When they were able to put some stops and some plays together last year defensively, it was against the run, and so I have to agree with you. And of course, Rob Gronkowski, the tight end one in PPR for week one of the fantasy football season. Like that call as well. I think Evans has more in there than what we saw last week. I'm with you there. For me, he's still the wide receiver 3, though. I think we talked about it last week. Tom Brady brought Antonio Brown back into football. He literally saved the guy's career here pretty much. Uh, Godwin just fits with what he does. And then you've got Gronk over the middle. Evans it's a real thing here where he might be the fourth option in this offense. Quick question for you. Players in deeper leagues, maybe you're just looking to take a flyer stash on a tight end. We know how thin that position is. How do you feel about OJ Howard going forward this season? Obviously, coming back off the injury, not overly involved in week one. Is he going to have a significant enough role to be worth a roster spot? I don't know if I want to say 12-team leagues, but in a deeper format, would you look at stashing him now? You're going to wait and see. How do you feel about him there? Because I think the talent is there.
Definitely think the talent is there. He's burned me in a dynasty league. I've had him on my roster before. I think when it comes to tight ends, my typical process is to pay up for Kelsey, pay up for Waller. In my most of my leagues, I have secured one of those two guys, and so it's and then if not, I'll usually go for a kind of a high upside guy. I tend to try to stay away from streaming tight ends. I know that you're more the tight end whisperer than I am. So as far as OJ Howard's concerned, though, I wouldn't be, in a deep dynasty league. Yes, the talent's there. I'm not seeing it though, unless there's an injury. I think that's his only pathway to getting more. Gronk certainly is getting up there in years. If anything were to happen, he would step in. I mean, if you have deep roster and you do and you're wanting to get insurance for Gronk, he could be a handcuff there. We already talked about there being 4 mouths to feed in this offense. I just don't see him emerging unless there's an injury.
Yeah, this Bucs offense is loaded for sure as they go for back-to-back Super Bowl championships. Might be able to help you win a fantasy football championship this year, too. In terms of receivers for week 2, you also have Robert Woods featured in your wide receiver fantasy football start sit column. Again, all of the coaches' articles available to read over on flurrysports.org. We got all kinds of fantasy football content over there. Get you set for week 2. So if you haven't already, head on over, check it out. Robert Woods, talk to us about him. Colts defense, I feel like it's maybe a little risky to just say, let's fire somebody up against them. They're a respectable unit. So why we so high on Woods in another offense that has a lot of mouths to feed?
Yeah, so this is more just generally buying the Rams offense. Last week, Woods had kind of a down week. He got saved by a touchdown late there to save his fantasy day for all intents and purposes. But and Cooper Kupp looks like he is the number one there, and that may be. But if you're, I think it's too early to. Robert Woods is ranked right around that 24, and I just want to make sure that people know that if you have him, you should start him because I think last week was a down week. I think we're going to see more going forward from him. And then one other thing, you mentioned a lot of mouths to feed in with the Rams. Sean McVay's offenses have typically run pretty solidly through 3 receivers. And so between Higbee now being the main guy at tight end there and Kupp and Woods, Van Jefferson's going to get some too. But, I think that we're going to see Woods and Kupp be the main 2 guys. Kupp probably is going to be the 1A, but I think Woods is closer to being a 1B than a 2. And so I just wanted to make sure that if people have him, they're not bailing on him after one kind of tough week.
Awesome. I like that breakdown there. Really, really well done. Makes sense. I think this Rams offense for me is a buy in general. They're a team that I view them as a legitimate Super Bowl contender this year. So who knows? Maybe we'll see back-to-back teams winning Super Bowls on their home field. I don't know if the Chargers. Maybe you could throw the Chargers in there too if you want to get fancy with it. But yeah, so liked what I saw out of the Rams last week. Granted, it's not the Bears defense we're accustomed to, but should be in for another solid day this weekend at Indianapolis. Let's look at some wide receiver sits here, Coach. You've got, you're picking on my Jets again here. You and Jake thought you were funny at the end of last week, and now you got Corey Davis in the article. What are we doing here? Zach Wilson targeted him on 75% of his throws in the preseason. Corey Davis goes out as a monster game week 1, and now we're going to sit him? You sure about this?
Yeah, so this one is more just I'm concerned about Bill Belichick, the matchup. Bill Belichick notoriously eats rookie quarterbacks for breakfast. I think it's going to be a tough situation. I think it's going to be a tough situation there. Now, the one thing Corey Davis has going for him is he's going to get targets, and so that's great. But I'm saying I don't like him as a wide receiver 2 this week. If you're rolling him out there as a wide receiver 3, kind of roll the dice or a flex, I can get behind that. But I just don't think the ceiling's there for him this week. I think you're probably looking at another 8 or 9 targets, but I don't think he's going to have a big game like he did last week, certainly.
Yeah, it's going to I think it's going to be tough sledding for the Jets offense. I don't know, though. Sitting the wide receiver 5 from last week. I mean, like you said, he's going to have those targets. I think there might be a little PPR floor there to save the day for Corey Davis. I guess only time will tell. That Jets offensive line, though, that is not going to be pretty, I don't think, especially with Becton. He's scheduled to have surgery next week now. So, you get a rookie quarterback, and he's going to be running for his life, I feel like, quite a bit this season. Other receivers to sit. We're going back to the NFC South here. We got a couple. It's funny. The AFC East, they're all playing within division. NFC South, it's the same thing this week. So that's kind of interesting how the schedule worked out here in week 2. But we got another NFC South matchup. The New Orleans Saints. They're the toast of the town in a lot of ways after dismantling the Packers in Jacksonville last week. Shout out Duval County. Good times down there. And you don't like the Saints receivers, though, this week at Carolina. Curious to hear your thoughts, because Carolina plus 3.5 around where it's sitting. This game opened to pick them, and I don't know. I think we're a little out of hand here in terms of the betting line. Got to throw out a little pick I might like there. Curious if this sit call on the Saints receivers kind of flows into you handicapping or foreshadowing maybe how you see this game in a similar light to me.
Yeah, so this is more just last week, Winston only threw 20 passes. The Packers barely got off the plane and they were already down. And the game turned south in a hurry. 20 passes, 5 touchdowns last week. He only targeted his wide receivers 5 times, and which I was pretty big on Marquez Callaway last week. I thought he was going to come in and do well. He did have Jair Alexander in coverage, so that was concerning. I thought they'd move him around and make him a focal point of the offense, and certainly wasn't the case. Until somebody emerges here, I can't see starting any of these guys with any amount of confidence. It was Callaway with 2 targets. Deontay Harris had 2 targets and scored a touchdown. Chris Hogan had 1 target and scored a touchdown. But I'm staying away until somebody steps up. Callaway, I think, there still might be some value there for him. While Michael Thomas is out, I could see him still emerging. But I'm a little concerned that the Panthers are going to get there and bring back a little bit of the old Jameis, where that pass rush, I think, is going to harass him a little bit and move him around. And we'll see. We'll see if he's still throwing the ball away. But apparently the LASIK was the key to his success. So
yeah, I mean, comeback player of the year odds on Winston just crashed like a rock after that week 1 performance. And he really didn't do that much. I mean, 5 touchdowns, but I don't even think he had 200 yards passing in that game. The Packers just didn't show
148.
up. Oh my goodness. That's how? That's a statistical anomaly if I've ever seen one. So Packers didn't show up. I don't know how much exactly we learned about the Saints last week, other than I will say I think that defense, a lot of people were saying they took a significant step back, losing their leading pass rusher to the Bengals. Some other guys parting ways in the offseason. I think the defense is better than some people thought. Maybe not as much regression there as even I had anticipated for the Saints. Offense, though, jury's still out. I think we got some more to learn here this week. Panthers always play the Saints tough too. Like even when there's been a sizable gap, I'd say, in terms of how these teams are viewed, kind of expectations. Carolina, divisional home dog. Get a little betting play in there for you too. I like the Panthers, I think, plus a field goal and the hook. Coach, any other position players? We're talking about the Saints. Any thoughts on Juwan Johnson in particular? He had the 2 touchdown receptions last week. Is he a guy you'd be comfortable streaming in at the tight end position right away this week? Do you want to see maybe a little more non-touchdown production out of him?
Typically, yes, but if you're in trouble at tight end, I'd say roll with him.
Okay.
The tight end, I mean, there's not a whole lot out there at tight end. So if you're delving deep into the, and you're out of luck, I'd say he's definitely worth a stream this week. See if it's legit. Ideally, no. I'd prefer not to, unless you're in like a 2 tight end league or something. You got something zany like that going, but I think he's worth a roll of the dice, maybe in DFS too. But definitely scoring 2 touchdowns a game on, I believe it was 3 targets, is pretty unsustainable going forward.
Yeah. We'll have to see. Is he going to be a regular role of the offense in terms of targets for the Saints going forward? I think he could do worse, though. I think you're right in terms of streamers this week at the tight end position, just given how kind of barren it is when it comes to fantasy production on a consistent basis. Let's do some quarterback talk here as we wrap things up. Speaking of offenses who need to see a little more out of them this week, Ryan Tannehill and the Titans. What a disaster for them in the season opener. Derrick Henry fantasy owners were freaking out and ready to bail on the ship right after 1 week. I mean, settle down, guys. Come on. Derrick Henry will be a little bit better than 10.7 points or whatever he had. But Tennessee's got to be better overall. And you have Ryan Tannehill as a QB to start this week, going to Seattle, where the 12th man will be back for the first time in how many days? 2 years, really. You like Tennessee, though. You like Tannehill. Tell me why.
Yeah, I think this game could turn into a shootout. I'm not ready to write off Tannehill just yet. I saw a statistic that last week the Titans only play action passed on 10% of their passes, whereas last year that rate was about 40%. I think they're going to get back to some things that work. I mean, look at the skill guys on this offense, between Henry and A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. And something's got to click here. I think Seattle's defense is not what it once was. The Legion of Boom is no longer there. So it's looking at this game could turn into a shootout. And I think that Tannehill is he's been too consistent over the last year and a half to write off after one bad game. So I definitely think he's a start this week.
Yeah, good stuff there. I am a little concerned, I have to say. I feel like the Seattle defensive front might be improved over what we saw, at least the beginning of last year. If they're generating some pressure, that I think helps the secondary. However, knowing that Chandler Jones beat Taylor Lewan for 5 sacks and Taylor Lewan thanked him for embarrassing him in week 1, I have a feeling the Titans O-line is going to show up this week. They got a bit of a chip on their shoulder after a brutal game last week. And you mentioned the bevy of weapons in this offense. Don't forget about Chester Rogers, too. He led the team with 62 receiving yards a week ago. I don't know if we're looking to start him necessarily in fantasy this week, but, I just had to, crack a little funny joke. What else do we have here in terms of quarterbacks? buying back into this Rams offense. Matthew Stafford, you like Robert Woods. Not surprised you like Matthew Stafford here too. But with that Colts defensive front, maybe a little more challenging for him this week than it was against Chicago. Anything in particular that has Stafford standing out to you?
Yeah, so this is in general a vote of confidence that this offense is even in going into Indy is not necessarily the greatest spot, although Seattle certainly made it look like it last week. I'm just high on Stafford. I think you kind of get a little simple math here of a good coach and a good quarterback, and you just kind of get you got a guy who's been in the league for how many years in Detroit and wasted his career away there with a variety of different coaches, some talent that came and went. And I just think here we're seeing Matthew Stafford kind of take the next step. This is more just kind of a vote that week in, week out, he's a QB1 going forward. If you have doubts about him and it's a tough matchup, I'd say you give him the benefit of the doubt at this point.
Yeah, and that's a quarterback that a lot of people I think were able to get 9th, 10th, even 11th round in drafts, just based on where his ADP was compared to your Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. Stafford was still a guy you could wait on, and I think you're sitting pretty based on what we saw last week and how both coach and I feel about the Rams offense going forward this season. By the way, you mentioned a shootout in that Titans-Seahawks game. Betting market agrees with you. That game opened with a total 49.5. That's up to 54 right now in terms of the Vegas consensus. So I think a lot of sharp minds thinking along those same lines with you there. We'll wrap things up here. Quarterback sits. We've talked a lot already, I think, about both of these NFC South divisional matchups. You are sitting Matt Ryan against the Buccaneers, and you're also sitting Jameis Winston at the Panthers. You were sitting, obviously, the Falcons receivers Mike Davis with the Falcons, and then the Saints receivers as well. So we've kind of already, I don't know, what should I say, taking a crap on both of these offenses here. Matt Ryan looked terrible last week. Question number one for you, is his goose cooked? Is he done? Is he old? Is he over the hill? Did the Falcons really make a mistake by not drafting a quarterback for the future at number 4 back in the spring? And my second question, just to change things up here a little bit, because we have already talked about why we're fading these teams. If you had to start one of these guys, Matt Ryan or Jameis Winston, who would you rather play this week?
So first question, yes, I'm not going to write off Matt Ryan as done. But as far as fantasy quarterback, I did a dynasty article over the offseason, buy low, sell high. I said at that point, Matt Ryan has a reputation of being a consistent quarterback, and season long he has been. If you look at best ball type whole season, but
Sure.
He's finished less than QB1 in 50% of his games over the last couple of years, and that's with Julio Jones. Now you take away kind of his security blanket, and he's getting up there in years, adds really nothing with his legs, and so you're looking at he has to get it done entirely through the air, and it's hit or miss. You're looking at 50%. As far as who I would start this week between the two, that would be Jameis Winston for me, and that would probably be as long as Winston looks like he's the starter. I mean, if there's something where he has a bad game and Taysom Hill's waiting in the wings and there's some quarterback controversy circling, maybe I'd back off that take. But for me, Jameis Winston's the one I'd prefer between the two, and I don't even think it's particularly close. Last week would have been an optimal matchup, I thought, against the Eagles for Matt Ryan, and I actually thought that was going to be a big shootout, and they didn't do anything. So now this week against Tampa Bay, we'll have to see. Much tougher matchup. But yeah, I think Matt Ryan, if you still have him in Dynasty and you can get anything for him, I'd make the move.
Yeah, good stuff there. I don't want to write him off just yet, but he's 36 years old. And we saw it with Drew Brees last year, right, in this division, right? We're talking the Saints a lot on this show. We might as well talk about Drew Brees when we're talking about this. Phillip Rivers, even to some degree. When these quarterbacks hit the wall, they're done. And last week, I mean, Matt Ryan, I cannot remember off the top of my head what the average yards per target per in the air on his throws, but it was Drew Brees-esque or even worse than what we were talking about on this show a lot last year when Drew Brees just could not get the ball downfield. Man, I don't know. I like Arthur Smith as a coach. I liked what he did in Tennessee, but I don't know what he's going to be able to do with this offense going forward if Matt Ryan. Maybe there's a few decent games left, kind of in the same boat as you, though. Dynasty, I agree. I think it's time to sell. But good stuff as always as we breeze through your articles there. You got anyone else you want to throw out there as a play or as a definitely avoid this week before we sign off? Any other week 2 bold predictions you got for the people here?
Yeah, so I was just looking at some DFS, some games that I was particularly liking, some stacks, and I am really looking at this Dallas Chargers game. The Cowboys and the Chargers, I think, is going to be a good game to target. And that Seattle and Tennessee game, they both look like ones to get pieces of for DFS.
Okay, good stuff there. I would agree with you on both of those. I think Dallas and the Chargers could be primed for some points there as well, especially DeMarcus Lawrence going out for the Cowboys. You're looking to, I think, lay a field goal with the Chargers there too. I don't know that Dallas is getting many stops in that game. At any rate, I guess that will do it. Again, check out all the coaches' articles. Check out all of the teams' fantasy football content, NFL betting content, whatever floats your boat. It's all over at flurrysports.org. You can even read my NASCAR stuff if you want. We got a whole bunch of stuff cooking over there, so check it out. Subscribe to the Flurry Sports YouTube channel. Thank you to those of you who tuned in. I know the Friday night time is a little wacky, but we're just trying to fit it in when we can. Jake will be back with us next week too. I didn't even say we're down a man at the beginning, but Jake will be back next week, no doubt. Hopefully we can have a little longer show too. Coach, I do have one more thing. You and I are going head to head in the Pirate League, the Flurry Sports Pirate League this week. I saw what you did. You're targeting all my running backs. You're not getting McCaffrey. I'm too smart there, but I got to beat you because I didn't protect Aaron Jones. I figured you'd be going for Burrow or something too. And I got free pickings if I win. Every guy I went for, you didn't protect him, so I got a little cute, and it worked in my favor. Now I just got to beat you. How nervous are you? We do have one question in the chat if you have time. But yeah, I'm calling my shot now. I think you're in trouble in this Pirate League this week. My guys are going to show up because it wasn't pretty last week.
I was just pulling it up to see what the matchup looks like here.
Well, I can say Logan Thomas, who I got from Luke, because I lost last week. I wasn't too upset about having to give away George Kittle for Logan Thomas because I was high on Logan Thomas coming into the year, but he could have done a little more for me. I think last night he did.
So. Yeah, I see that. Well, and I just acquired Tannehill this past week too, and that was my upgrade over Carson Wentz there in this. So I've got him in there in a super flex. Looks like I am a 42-point favorite. Is that how I'm seeing that?
I don't have two guys in my starting lineup yet. I got a couple decisions I'm holding out on you.
Okay.
Maybe hold out on myself because I literally don't know what I'm doing with those last two.
Okay. Once you throw those guys,
maybe I'll play Corey Davis, and then when he goes off, you had him in the start sit article, so it'll be a double whammy. I'll beat you, and I can say, don't fade my Jets.
I like it. That's putting your money where your mouth is, right?
Woo!
Yeah.
I might have to do that.
And I think so you're going after Kelsey was your number one?
Kelsey, Tannehill, and CeeDee Lamb because
okay.
I like where my running backs are at. So if I win, or stack up some other positions here.
I might regret not protecting Kelsey. I went with Ridley over Kelsey with the idea that I thought Logan Thomas would be okay as a fallback, but we shall see. I think in hindsight, I might regret that. So
Yeah, Corey Davis. I might have to play him now. We'll see how cocky I'm feeling on Sunday.
Yeah.
Do you have time, real quick? It is a trade question, so not necessarily looking at matchups or anything this week. I feel like we can answer this pretty quick. Full PPR. Which side would you be doing here? Calvin Ridley and Sterling Shepard, or Amari Cooper and Brandon Cooks? So it's a wide receiver deal here. Obviously, we talked Sterling Shepard looking pretty good here. Maybe the real deal with the Giants. I feel like for me, this might come down to how I feel about Houston's offense going forward, because last week was really nice.
How long is Gallup out for?
I can try and figure that out here.
That one's another big one there. If
Yeah.
that's another reason I mentioned earlier, I like the Chargers and I like the Cowboys matchup. I really love stacking Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper, and CeeDee Lamb just because there's going to be a lot going around there.
So it's going to be a minimum of 3 weeks for Gallup. He was placed on IR, and initial reports suggesting it'll be between 3 and 5, but we're looking at least 3 here. So I like Ridley, but at the same time, we just talked about, what does Matt Ryan have left? Man, maybe we're not answering this as fast as I thought.
Yeah, I'm just checking my rest of season rankings here to see what I'm where I've got these guys ranked here. I would between the two sides there, I would go with the I prefer the Ridley and Shepard side for that. It's close. I do still prefer Ridley to Cooper. Season long, he is the alpha in Atlanta. I think CD Lamb is going to kind of become the 1A to Cooper 1B as the season progresses. Shepard's really looked like the number one. Now, he does have a track record with some migraines and with injuries, and we know that Cooks, they're going to be passing a lot in Houston. It's a tough one. It's pretty darn close. But I think with Ridley and Shepard, you're getting two number ones. I mean, for their teams respectively. I think I would lean that would be the way I'd go.
Yeah, it's really close for me too. As much as I think I like the players on the Amari Cooper and Brandon Cook side, I totally understand your points about Ridley and Shepard being the alphas pretty clearly, I'd say, for their teams. The Giants, I know for a fact, have a tough schedule coming up. So do the Texans, though. Now, you can read into that however you'd like. It's like, they're going to be behind and having to pass, and that's good for Cooks. But at Cleveland this week, obviously, they host the Panthers next Thursday. Bills, Patriots, Colts, Cardinals, Rams, Dolphins. I mean, where is the relief in terms of defense there? I don't think this offense is going to look quite as good as they did last week for the entire season, as much as I love Tyrod Taylor. I like the players on the Amari side more, but I also hear you. I mean, I would argue CeeDee Lamb's kind of the 1A already to Amari Cooper, even though Cooper obviously went off last week, but Lamb gets those targets. Prescott looking his direction a lot. Don't know how much the Cowboys will run the ball this year. I'm kind of down on them as a running team. So I'd make a case for Cooper there. It's neck and neck, and I got to pick a side, don't I? I'm gonna go with my gut. I'm gonna go Cooper and Cooks. I like the players better, and I think Sterling Shepard, the concussions, those are a real concern for me too. Like, he's lucky to even be on the field at this point.
Yeah, that is a good point. I think you are more likely to get more games out of Cooks. Um, and Houston's going to be trailing in a lot of those games too. Um,
Although you can make the case as well, Cooper, he seems to always come down with an injury, and even if he's playing through it, we've seen him have some rough games down the stretch of seasons. So I don't know.
yeah, that's a tough call. I think according to my rankings, I have Ridley and Shepard, but I can definitely see it. It's about as even as you can get for a trade.
Yeah. So maybe if you drafted one way or the other there, maybe you just stick with who you drafted. I don't know, unless you're one of those fantasy players who's always just down to pull the trigger on a trade, and you can look to see how it pans out for you. But I think Coach and I both agree. Hopefully, it'll work its way out, and you'll be all right either way you go there. So it is very close. All right, Coach, you got anything else? I think we ran through the articles and stuff, and I don't know that I have any other things I wanted to fire at you. So
Nope, I got to head out. Thank you so much, Henry, and best of luck this weekend.
all right, awesome stuff. Good luck, everyone, in week 2, and we'll be back here next Friday night. This has been the Flurry Sports Fantasy Football Start Sit Show for week 2. I definitely had a typo in the title. I didn't change the 1. I'm sorry. Week 2. Good luck to everyone. You have any other questions, hit up the coach or I on Twitter, or Zach, or any of the Flurry Sports crew. Check out all the articles. Good stuff. We will talk to you later. Have a great evening.